Everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the American Exceptionalist. So a couple things before I get into this presidential prediction. Please remember to like and subscribe to the video. We are growing very great, and I'd appreciate it all very much. Second of all is I'm going to try and make more content when I get my laptop back in. A big reason that I haven't been able to make content recently is due to the fact that my laptop is out. And well, yeah, I have made content and posted videos. It's just so much easier to edit and make just more retention and more viewed videos when I'm on a laptop rather than being on a phone screen. So just letting you all know that. But anyways, let's get back. So we have the Trump, Vance versus Harris prediction, and a lot of things have happened. Trump is maintaining a lead in the polls, but he's only leading around 1 to 2 to maybe 3 points in most polls, where he was leading Biden by about 5 to 4. And a lot of Republicans have been dooming about this. And, I was a little off put by it the other day. But a good thing to remember is that the average is still like a Trump 48%, 49% in the polls, even against Harris. And even with the polls where Harris leads, there's such a large amount of undecided voters that it can't really be used reliably. And another thing to remember is that if Trump is at 48% of the popular vote, not only does he expand his popular vote percentage by about 1 to 2 points, he also definitely wins the Electoral College. So, with all that mentioned, let's just get straight down to prediction. Let's start with the safe red states: Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, yada yada. And a very important thing to remember is that just because a state is in the red or in the blue does not mean it's going to be totally not competitive. Like a state like I'm going to put in the blue, like New Jersey or New York, I think they are potentially competitive battlegrounds. I just think since Biden has been removed from the ticket that it's going to be less close than it initially was due to the fact that Harris is more of a traditional Democratic nominee. Therefore, I can't really give Trump the benefit of the doubt and that I would have gave during against Biden, because Biden is vastly unpopular. And, Harris is too. She's just improved in her favorability rating as of recent due to the fact that she stepped in. But anyways, let's go into these, what I consider to be the competitive states, where there is, some competition where they could reasonably go either way. Now, first, I'm going to give Harris Delaware by a likely margin, and I'm going to move Maine actually back into likely. And I know I had it at tilt the other one. There have been some polls out of Maine, and that's a big reason I'm moving it more to the Democratic column out of Trump's column, is mainly due to the fact that she is the more traditional Democratic candidate compared to Biden. And I think it's very important to remember that when making predictions, because, I think Trump is still going to win many of the states I had him winning previously, but I can't be as generous to him and giving him Maine or Minnesota or, improving on his margins in the traditional Democrat states anymore. That's just the fact. But anyways, so as for likely states, I'm going to also put Colorado and New Mexico into that column. I think there's an argument to be made that, it might be a lean argument for Trump in the state of New Mexico, especially since Harris has underperformed with Hispanics traditionally when she's ran for statewide office. In California, that is, however. So I'm going to, play it safe, err on the side of caution, and give Harris New Mexico by a likely margin. And I'm also going to err on the side of caution and give Trump Texas on the side of caution, Florida on the side of caution, move Georgia back into the lean column. Sorry about that, it was a mistake. And give North Carolina to Trump by a lean margin. I think Trump is going to hold on to the South and pick up Georgia again. There have been some polls that have showed quite a tightening, and I can't really say for certain that, it's not going to tighten further, but I do think Trump is favored in the state widely. It is down to a lot of factors. It depends on how much of the African American vote, how much of the white working class vote is out in this election, and that really will be the true decider of the election. Is if there's low minority turnout, if there's high white working class turnout, if there's high working class turnout in general, if there's a lot of male turnout in the key Rust Belt, then yeah, Trump's going to win this election. He doesn't really need Georgia. But as of now, I'm leaving Georgia in Trump's column. I'm also going to give Trump Nevada and Arizona. Polls are still having Trump up in the state. Trump is in a greater position in Arizona than I think he's ever been in his political career outside of 2016, unironically, which I think speaks a lot about the border in this election, considering Arizona is one of the most heavily impacted states by the Biden-Harris border disaster, similar to New Mexico. And Trump's messaging in New Mexico has been so on point that I'm confident that even if he does lose the election, he's still going to pick up Nevada. And, we could be a few days out from Election Day, and, Trump's at like 260, 265, something along those lines. And Nevada might be what decides the election at some point if he picks up a Wisconsin and a Pennsylvania and Arizona, and he still needs like a Nevada or something to get across the line. All right. Iowa, again, I don't think either of these are going to be swing states. I think Vance is going to help Trump lock down Ohio, simply being from there. I think if she picks Beshear, it could be in the likely column, which is my current prediction for vice president on her side. Now, other than that, I think Trump is going to win the state of Pennsylvania. I think Vance is going to help tremendously for Trump's campaign in eastern Pennsylvania, potentially in the Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is this little portion right here, which does currently have a Republican congressman, which, shows that, yeah, it is definitely a potential pickup for Republicans, that Pennsylvania, while voting for Democrats in the 2022 midterms, is still at the end of the day a swing state and still one that is favorable to Trump in this environment. And if we see nothing else this election, I think if we do see a Trump victory, this is going to be the bare minimum. But moving on, Virginia, I was always cautious about Virginia. I think Republicans have been too, courteous and too excited about picking up Virginia. I don't think it's going to be picked up this time around, especially with a more traditional Democrat on the ticket. I don't necessarily think she's going to do amazing in the exurbs of Virginia, like Virginia Beach. I do think that she's going to energize the Nova area to a certain extent. To what extent, I can't say. But yeah, I think, Republicans need to be more on the side of picking up Pennsylvania first and foremost. That's the most important, crucial battleground. Locking down Georgia, locking down Arizona, and locking down Nevada. And this is the quickest pathway to 270. You're at 286. You got a margin of error. It's an uncomfortable victory, but it is still a victory. And I think that's what Republicans need to do. Now, I'm going to just do Maine and Nebraska. I think Harris is going to just narrowly take the Nebraska second again, and I think Trump is easily going to take Maine second. I'm going to put it in the likely column. Recent polls have showed a tightening. I'm not confident in the tightening, but, just to err on the side of caution, and as a political analysister, I can't necessarily, just ignore the polls entirely. I have to account for them to some extent, so I'm putting Maine second district back in the likely column. I am going to put New Hampshire in the likely column as well for Harris. I think Trump is not a great pick to win in the state of New Hampshire, especially for Republicans. Chris Sununu has not went out of his way to campaign for him. He is doing a more smart maneuver and focusing on, local Senate and House seats for his governorship, and, supporting the governor race there, which I think is ultimately a very smart decision. However, it's not looking good for Trump's chances in New Hampshire. All right, moving over to the three crucial Rust Belt states that will really pack or soften the victory for either or side. That being Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. So there's been a poll out of Michigan showing Trump with a 0% in Detroit among black voters. I am not taking that poll too seriously. That is just too unrealistic. Like, maybe if it was 5%, I would count for it. I don't necessarily support that poll. I have seen, various analysts and data out of the state of Michigan that has been both favorable and unfavorable to Trump. I'm going to err on the side of caution and say Harris does win it. I'm still keeping with the prediction that Mike Rogers picks up the Senate seat. However, it is too early to say. I do think Wisconsin will vote for Trump. I think it's going to be a very similar election to the Barnes v. What's his current incumbent senator? Ooh, I'm sorry, I forgot right now. But the Mandela Barnes versus the I'll put him up on screen if I can remember. Versus the incumbent Republican senator Scott something. Sorry about that, folks. I think it's going to be very close, and that's what I'm trying to get to, as that Senate race was very close. It was a lot closer than it needed to be, especially for Republicans in Wisconsin. And I think, all things considered, I think Trump is going to win the state. You know, Republicans have been historically underestimated, so even when I see Trump in the state behind by a point or just tied with Harris, I'm still airing that, yeah, Trump's probably going to win the state. I think it'll be a more comfortable victory than a 1-point win, at least I'd assume so. But erring on the side of caution, it could potentially be tilt. But for right now, I'm going to leave it in the lean column. Minnesota, again, we've seen some polls out of Minnesota that haven't been favorable to Trump in a Harris matchup. I think the Harris funding the Minnesota Freedom Fund will definitely be to her detriment. Although that was definitely probably tacked upon in the 2020 election, although not to the degree that I expect it to be tacked on this time. Minnesota is a weird state. The Twin Cities are the only thing keeping it blue. And, you know, Republicans should probably not be focusing on Minnesota. They need to be focusing on the states that Biden picked off of Trump in the 2020 election and just, you know, expand the map out of there. Because if we can lock down Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Georgia, then that's the election right there. And if you remember my video that I posted 1 year before the election, I did have Trump winning, although him narrowly picking off Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And I still think, you know, adding on Arizona to that and Nevada, I still think that is Trump's best pathway, is picking off at least Wisconsin and Pennsylvania to get to the White House. And so without further ado, please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys next time.